guys, so I'm here to do a currently reading video. I'm going to talk to you about the books I'm currently reading, what my thoughts are at the points I'm in the books, and this is always just a nice way for me to chat about the books, what I'm thinking as I'm reading them. I think we all have loads of thoughts as we're reading a book, and it's just a way to spout those, as well as perhaps make interesting comparison to my thoughts after I finish the book. But the book I'm going to talk to you about first is the one I am loving the most at the moment, and it is the second in a series, and that is Rebel Angels by Libba Bray. This is the second in the Gemma Doyle series. I read the first in this series a few days ago. It was called A Great and Terrible Beauty, and as soon as I was finished it, I needed the sequel, so I ordered myself a second-hand copy, and it's pretty beat up, but it was only a couple of pounds, and it provided me with the much needed continuation of the story. So obviously I don't want to say too much about what's going on in this book, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But to introduce you to the series, if you're not familiar, this series is set in 1895, so the end of the 19th century. And it follows our protagonist Gemma Doyle, who is a 16-year-old girl who has grown up her entire life in India, but due to some unforeseen circumstances she is sent to a girls' finishing school in England, London, or just outside London, to sort of finish up, you know, her ladylike education and to be introduced into society and make a good wife and mother. But it is so much more than that. It's also a fantasy series. It's full of magic, and what I would probably describe this as is a three-way combination of Jane Austen, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and The Craft. That's how I'd describe it. Gemma Doyle has strange visions of another world, and in the first book it's about her learning about this other world and discovering it, and also fitting in at her new finishing school and sort of getting to know the other girls there. And I wrote a review of the first one on my blog. I adored this series. It's a young adult book series. I was interested by it, but I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I feel like it is the feminist fantasy period novel I never knew I always wanted. It's using a fantasy world to sort of explore the way in which women of this time were very much confined by their societal roles and their families and the men in their lives, and the expectations placed upon them, and the lack of choice and freedom that they had. And it's showing that these young women have these unique spirits and this individuality that all young women have, and that they're becoming sexually aware of themselves and others, like many others will be able to relate to, and how that's kind of restricted by society. But I think the author, through this magical world and this wonderful mysterious story, it sort of gives them some of that freedom that they lack, and it's just wonderful. As you can tell, I loved the first one, and the second one, when I first started it, it was a little bit cheesy at the beginning, but it soon turned into just as wonderful a book as the first one. I'm now about 280 pages in, and I think there's about 400 okay, it's just over 500 pages. They seem to get chunkier as the series goes on. It's a trilogy, so that's good for me. And one of the things about this one that I think I can say without being a spoiler is it definitely explores more of the magic, and you learn more about, you learn more about the magic in this one, which is really nice because that's something I definitely wanted from the first one. So we're getting to learn more about that, and the characters are also taken away from the finishing school atmosphere for a large part of it, and it's set in London, so you get to explore London, and you know how much I love a book set in London, regardless of the time period. I love trawling the streets of London in a fictional environment. I just think it's such a nice experience, especially if you've been there and know some of the areas. So that I'm really enjoying about this one. And yeah, I'm just absolutely in love with this series. So in love, more than I ever expected to be. And I can see this one being a 5-star read as well if it continues in the same vein, and I am sure I'm going to immediately pick up the third in the series once I'm finished it. One of the other things I like in this story is that it does have romantic aspects. Like I mentioned, there's definitely an element of sort of sexual awakening in the themes of this book, but it's not solely focused on that, and it's very much about the female relationships as well, the good and the bad and the complexity of the characters, and I really enjoy that. Actually, everything I'm currently reading is young adult, and the next one is the second and also in a series but a duology in this instance, and that is Vivian versus America. I read the first one of these a couple of years ago and never got around to the sequel. I really enjoyed the first in the series. It's apocalyptic novel where the world's kind of, you know, facing all of the things that our world now is facing with impending environmental disasters and lack of resources, and you know, things are kind of falling apart, and everyone in America and most people in America have become really infatuated by what is essentially a religious cult, and the religion of Frick. And he has announced that this day there will be a rapture, and the book starts pretty much from the day of the rapture when Vivian's parents disappear amongst many others during the rapture, and she decides with her friend Hart to go off and find them. Now, like the Gemma Doyle series, actually one of the things I really like about this book series is the focus on the female relationships and the friendships in it, and not just the romance, although there's definitely a romance in the first one. And I'm enjoying this one. There was such a cliffhanger at the end of the first one, in that you had this massive reveal about some of the elements of the story, but a reveal that just very much led to more questions and curiosity as to what could possibly happen next. And I am enjoying this, but I can't say I'm in love with it as much as I enjoyed the first one. I think the first one was like a 4-star read for me. So far this has been more of a 3-star read, but I am only 94 pages in and it's just over 300 pages, so it could really take off and speed up. But at the moment that's how I'm feeling. I'm interested, but in comparison to the Gemma Doyle series, I'm not compelled by it. And I think there's a difference. I'm sure you've experienced that yourself. An interesting book, but that doesn't have you compulsively drawn to it and picking it up ahead of other stories. I think maybe one of the things that lacks a little bit is the degree of mystery that the first one has. But I am at a point where the plot has had quite a pivotal twist, and some things have come to light which I think might actually make the story pick up a little bit and has me a little bit more interested than I necessarily was in those first 90 pages. So that's definitely a good thing, and I do want to finish this one because, like I said, I really enjoyed the first one. I'd like to complete the series, find out what happens. Goodness only knows what could possibly happen at this point. One of the things I also like about these books, thematically, is that although it's very much an absent parent YA book, like some YA books can be, you know, parents just seem to disappear, there's a reason for it, we're given a reason for it, and it feels real in that, you know, the main character, Vivian's parents, have let her down, which does happen to lots of young people, and that feels realistic, although it's in quite what feels like an unrealistic environment. And I like that in part she's kind of forming her own family with her friends, and I think that's really nice, showing the importance of friendship, and I think that's still being explored in this one, but we'll see how it goes. And lastly, my third YA book that I'm reading that I just started is Moonrise by Sarah Crossan. I read Sarah Crossan's one, which was a standalone book, as is this, last year and loved it. And one of the things that's so amazing about her books is that they're written in verse. Now, if you don't know what I mean, they're basically big, long poems telling a narrative. And this is the same as I just showed you, and I think I could love this more than one. We'll have to see how it goes, but I think I really could. And I think one was a 5-star read, so it's just gonna be another 5-star read. This one is about our main character who is 17, and his brother was accused of a murder a few years ago and was sent to death row. It's been a few years. His brother's execution date is coming up, so he is to be executed very soon. So our main character has gone to the same area that the prison is in the hopes of visiting his brother, as he hasn't previously been allowed to, given that he's not been over 18. And he is not sure whether his brother did this or not. His brother still says that he is not guilty of this crime, and he wants to hear from his brother. He is obviously deeply affected by what has happened, and it's affected his family and his mother, and they're now, him and his sister have been partially now cared for by their aunt, because their mother, like I said, has been deeply affected by what happened to their brother. So there's a lot going on there. And I'm just starting to kind of piece it all together as this kind of jumps around a little bit. You learn a little bit about our character now, a little bit about our character in the past, a little bit in now, a little bit in the past. And he hasn't yet met his brother again at the prison at the point I'm at only 65 pages in, and this one is over 350 pages, so a lot still to happen, but so far, like I said, I am really enjoying it. It could be a 5-star read. I think the verse is beautiful, and one of the things I think about the verse writing in Sarah Crossan's books is that it makes it really difficult to put them down. They just flow, so you just want to keep turning the pages and reading the next line and reading the next line, and you could zoom through it in a day. I also think there's such a great introduction to verse narratives if it's something you're interested in, because they are easy to read, and I don't mean that as a criticism. I think they're accessible but simultaneously beautiful and interesting stories, and it can be all of those things, and it can be easy to read, and being easy to read is not a bad thing, especially if you're unfamiliar with verse narrative, because a lot of the famous verse poems, long epic poems, are from very different time periods, and that's what makes them difficult to read, because they were written for a different audience who was used to a different way of writing and reading and storytelling and language use. So it's just now it fits in with a modern use of language, and I think that's really nice. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I'm so glad to have it. I am a little bit apprehensive though that this one is probably going to make me cry. One made me cry, and this one feels like every page could be the page that I start bawling at. So yeah, I'm enjoying this one, as you can tell. Now usually I talk about the audiobook I'm listening to in these videos, but I'm not really actively listening to any audiobooks at the moment. I did just start listening to The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco, but I'm only about 20 minutes in, and this audiobook is more than 20 hours long. So I have no thoughts on it so far. I read maybe the first 60, or it was less than 100 pages of this book a while back, got distracted, and then recently decided to pick it back up again because I was enjoying it at the time, but on audiobook. This one is a detective novel set in a medieval monastery. That's pretty much all I can say about it. It's meant to be amazing. I do think I will love it, and I'm thinking the audiobook's the right way for me to go at the moment. But in terms of thoughts, I can't really give you any real feedback given how little I've actually listened to it recently. Those are all the books I'm currently reading. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of them, if you have any, or if you are thinking of reading any of these books, or if you've read any similar books that you think I'd like. No spoilers for the Gemma Doyle series, but if you have read them and want to gush about them with me, please do just refrain from spoilers, because I'm so in love, guys. I'm so in love. And I have to say, I think it's very much the fault of She Might Be Monica, Monica, who shared an article by Libbre on social media that I read, and then suddenly had my interest sparked in Libbre and ordered both the first Gemma Doyle book and the other book that she wrote that's really famous, Beauty Queens, which is sort of like an all-female Lord of the Flies. And although I hate Lord of the Flies because it freaks me out to no end, I'm very excited for that book, and yeah, so I think we'll blame Monica for that, so do check out her channel for more excellent book recommendations. But until next time guys, happy reading, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!